Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad to take your phone calls and emails. We'll do that just a little bit later. But first, I thought we'd talk a bit about the Congress has passed a law, and they said, well, we've got to have a law against hate crimes, specifically those committed against Asian Americans. But then they had an opportunity to actually reduce discrimination against Asian Americans, and it didn't happen. And the perfect person to talk to about this is Emilie Kao, who's director of the Richard and Helen DeVos Center for Religion and Civil Society at the Heritage Foundation. Ms. Kao, welcome back to the program. And I have to tell you something. You don't brag on your CV very much. But a young lady who goes to Harvard Law School in Radcliffe and then goes to Harvard Law and doesn't become, like Barack Obama and other people who come out of Harvard, I find that the truly amazing thing. How in the world did you escape those institutions with a degree and a JD without turning into the kind of liberal that we're used to seeing coming out of Harvard?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think that coming from an immigrant background has made me appreciate America and how unique it is. And having traveled and lived around the world, I see that the founding values of this country are unique and what made America great. And if we depart from them, as I'm concerned that we will, the greatness of this country will also decline.
Do you see some of that departure in this bill where the Congress says we want to protect Asian Americans from physical attack on the streets, but we don't want to do much of anything against discrimination against them where it may matter a whole lot more, like decisions about who gets to go to college?
Well, I think everyone should be concerned about violent attacks against any person, including the Asian Americans, especially during the coronavirus. But I don't think that the right way to address physical attacks is by racial group. I think it's by better law enforcement, stronger law enforcement, and giving the police what they need. I don't think that adding racial preferences into any legislation is going to be the way out of racial prejudice. I think that impartiality towards all people and treating people as individuals is the right way to address both violent attacks and the unfortunate prejudice that we see in college admissions towards Asian Americans and other students. I think that's clearly racial discrimination, and yet Congress hasn't addressed that.
Well, I agree with you, Ms. Kao, and I guess I almost wonder if you start passing bills saying we can't just call this an assault on an American. We have to call it an assault on an Asian American, that at that point where we begin to pass laws to specifically address things like that, do we run the danger of almost, going overboard the other direction, saying if you're in this group, you get a special level of protection. If you don't happen to be in that group, then you don't get that kind of protection. That seems as though the Democrats in particular who passed this bill are trying to create, Animal Farm. All animals are equal. Some are just more equal than others. And more equal than others, to me, does not sound like equal protection under the law. But you're the one with the Harvard JD, not me.
Well, I think most people can see that while these laws may be well-intentioned, once you start elevating people by their racial group into these categories, you do value some lives over other lives, as you're alluding to with Animal Farm. And I don't think that is the right way to go about addressing violent crimes. As I said, violent crime should be addressed by giving law enforcement the tools that they need and, allowing them to do their job. What I'm concerned about is with critical race theory, as I said in the article, is that it's dividing Americans along racial lines unnecessarily and very harmfully. And it is going to diminish the equality in this country, the equality of all people as individuals, that has allowed different races and people of different, ethnic backgrounds, national backgrounds to coexist. It's based on the fact that we are all treated equally.